All right, we ready to rock here?
I'm ready when you are.
Let's go. I'll do a little bit of an intro, then bring you back in real quick, okay?
Sounds great.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Valley News Now Network. As Duke Schindler here, joining you on this Friday afternoon, and we got a very special guest here on deck today. We're going to bring him in right now. It's Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage, hitting the hardwood, the missing Lynx, the missing Wolves, and also a full-time nurse on top of that.
Yeah, glad to be here. I'm busy some days.
Well, we'll definitely be diving into that just a little bit here. But thank you once again for joining me here, Andrew. You can find him on Twitter/X at ADuke Minnesota, ADukeMN, I should say. So go ahead and give him a follow here, but chat as well. We do have a live chat up here, Andrew, and something you're very familiar with. So we'll be taking a peek at that, seeing kind of if anyone wants to hear from you here. So glad we got you on here, Andrew.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here. Like I said.
Yep, and we're here to talk some Wolves. Just coming off the All-Star break here. They're sitting in the 6th seed with 26 games left in the season. But great news, one single game is separating the Wolves from the 3 seed. That would be the Rockets/Nuggets right now, who are tied for that. Weird trade deadline, obviously, if you're tapped into this team. Kind of the vibes felt off here. So, Andrew, you were in the building at the Target Center and Mayo here today, yesterday. You know, what were the guys, how are the guys feeling after probably a pretty stressful deadline?
Yeah, I think, for some of the guys it was kind of a sigh of relief. Julius, whose name was kind of in trades all of January, you could just kind of feel like the vibe was a little bit different, just feeling just you know where you're going to play, you don't have to move your family, you don't have to find a new school system. Like it's a lot more stressful than I think people realize. Honestly, in the building yesterday and today, the biggest thing was just Mike Conley's back. He kind of gets this reputation of being the team dad, and it's completely like true. Like the guys go to him for everything from money help to relationship help to basketball help to film review. He's kind of the connector to everyone on this team. So when he got traded, multiple guys yesterday and today said their first huddle in Toronto, no one knew no one knew who was supposed to say 1, 2, 3 Wolves at the end of it. So they just kind of stood there for a few seconds before Nas finally did it. And then it's just that space where you just don't have the leader of the clubhouse on the team anymore. So a lot of relief that he was back. Bones, TJ, both spoke on it. Io mentioned it as well. Just a lot of good vibes that Mike's back. So he's back with a little bit longer beard. He's sporting a headband now, and we'll see how many minutes he actually plays. But I think he's kind of just happy to be back in the building with all the people he considers family.
And I'd like to say, too, I'm sure at his age here for Minnesota, Mike, that, you don't really want to move. So I'm sure, like, being traded even a second time, having that open up the opportunity to come back to Minnesota and stay in the place he's been for the last couple years, that was a big sigh of relief for him, I'd imagine. But building off that here as well, you said it, Mike Conley's back in the building, and you were also there for his media availability. What did you kind of learn from him? It sounds like he may be taking on a little bit of a different role here so far. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I think Mike. It's interesting. Like background that I'll give is I think the plan the entire season with Mike was by playoffs he is not a major contributor on this team. All summer, Mike, Chris, the management were all kind of saying Rob Dillingham, this is his opportunity. He's going to have every chance to grab it. TJ Shannon, it's his opportunity, every chance. Bones, Dante, they have so many different people that could kind of take Mike's job as he enters this latter end of his career. And unfortunately, almost all of those went off the rails. You know, Rob struggled mightily, ends up getting traded to Chicago. TJ, between the foot injuries and just not finding a rhythm, didn't really work out. Jalen Clark, offense fell off a cliff. And they're still playing Mike Conley 20 minutes. And I think with the trade to get Io DeSumo in the mix, that kind of finally made the reality of, hey, Mike, we don't need you for those minutes. Now, is there going to be a time where someone misses a game for an injury and Mike plays 20 minutes? Is there going to be foul trouble and Mike gets thrown in? Heck, if the guys look like they're having that deer in the headlights moment, does Mike come in for 15 minutes just to calm them down? Like, certainly, I think this isn't the last we are going to see of Mike Conley playing basketball, but I think he's been at peace with the fact that like it's not his time. Yesterday in the scrum, he kind of mentioned that you know it's not his time. He's been there and done that. He's been an all-star. He's played in playoff series. Like it's Bones and Io's time to kind of capitalize and take this team further. I think unfortunately this season, Mike's just kind of had to wait a little bit longer than anyone thought he would. And now as he's coming back, Io has looked great. Bones has really kind of capitalized on more minutes. And I think we are going to see Mike just get more of a bench role, which at this stage in his career, like I think that's something that he's looking forward to as well, because fans don't get to see how he walks after these games, and you can tell his body goes through it.
Definitely, definitely. And, kind of before we get into the rest of the season here, we did hear some rumblings about a specific player, a star for the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards. I was hopped onto your live podcast with Chris Hine, heard you talk about that, and, all these weird rumblings about, how Ant told Jalen Johnson, who is an Atlanta Hawk, and for those who don't know, Anthony Edwards is from Atlanta. He told Jalen Johnson that he can't wait to come home. Now, Ant's obviously from that ATL area, but, what did you make of this, Andrew? And really, is this more of a Fugazi from the Hawks fans with all their excitement, I will put in air quotes?
Yeah, Chris Hines, you know, wrote the book on Ant, which is behind me. Ant, shout out Chris Hines. Always got to give him his props as I promptly move my arm in front of his book. But you know, Chris Hines' take on it, I think, is pretty apt. That there's a lot of noise waiting for Ant in Atlanta. There's a lot of people that want to kind of latch their claws into Ants, and Chris kind of explained it as like Ant and his camp are very aware that it would be a different situation. Chris also kind of shed some light on in the off season. Ant goes to Miami. He doesn't go to Atlanta. Spends a lot of time in Minnesota, and that Ant doesn't really go around that Atlanta area as much as he used to. And Chris kind of referenced some people that he interviewed for the book, saying that like, yeah, Ant doesn't really come around like he used to. Which again, when you're a prodigy from a city and you know that if you go back to that city, there might be a lot of people waiting to take advantage of you, or new friends that are going to come out of the woodwork and stuff like that. I think it's kind of a smart, you know, business decision for Ant. That was kind of Chris Hines, to summarize his take on it. My take's pretty similar. I think Ant naturally would want to go play for the Hawks. Like Dwayne Wade went and played for Chicago. If Seattle gets a team, I'm sorry, Wolves fans, Jaden McDaniels might want to go play for Seattle in 10 years. But the amount of money Ant would be leaving on the table to go to Atlanta before 2031, 2032, I mean, he'd be leaving like $200 million on the table just in like supermax money. And also, I think he's acutely aware that like winning a championship in Minnesota would put him in a different level of like, you know, he'd be the guy that finally did it, right? Like whether it's the Vikings, whether it's the Wolves, I know the Twins, Lynx, and Frost have had success, but like I think he's acutely aware of like legacy building. To be the guy that did it in Minnesota would be special. And he also likes it here. Like I think he generally enjoys the fact that he can just go play basketball play Xbox. He doesn't have like paparazzi knocking down his door. It is something that a lot of the guys on the team talk about. Of like, I remember Dante last year, I think he was in one of his exit interviews, was just like, yeah, I love it here. I can go get coffee and I don't get harassed. And like, I think that stuff is just kind of overlooked of, for a guy like Ant that doesn't want to be the face of the league. I don't know how many times he has to say it before he gets forced into it, but he wants to live kind of incognito. And I think when you're living in the suburbs of Minneapolis, you're able to do that a lot easier than if you're living in downtown Atlanta. So that's my take. I for sure think at some point, if I had to bet on it, I'd say at some point Ant spends a season or two in Atlanta, but I don't think it's going to be in the near future. I think that's 6, 7, 8 years out. Just my opinion.
And I can tell you right now, if the Hawks are getting the Chicago version of Dwayne Wade with Ant, I think I'm going to be okay with giving that up for a season or two. But I don't even know if you remember this as well, Andrew. This came a long time ago, back when Karl Anthony Towns is a very young player for us. He tweeted, and it goes in reference on just how people get treated, how players get treated here. I think he was kind of got a little sticker shock. He was saying, no one's walking up to me. No one's asking me for anything. Do they even know who I am here? And it's like, no, dude, they definitely do. This is just Minneapolis and Minnesota. We're not going to miss a 7-foot tall dude walking through the streets. We just got respect for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean I've seen Julius like working out at the Lifetime under the Target Center, like just with normal people. Like Chris Finch has beers in the North Loop all the time, and I'll get sent DMs of like, I just ran into Chris Finch at XYZ bar and talked to him for 10 minutes. A story I'll always kind of remember is Nikhil Alexander Walker before they went to LA last year in the playoffs. He had said that all of his neighbors made chalk art for him outside of his driveway on the street and put like balloons on the mailbox and all of that stuff. And then he was so impressed because it started to rain and people went out and put bags over the chalk art and balloons so it wouldn't get ruined. And he's just like, that's Minnesota. Like, it's just different, which I think the more kind of established players that come through here and realize like, oh, this is like a place where I can be normal. I think the more of a draw it's going to be because I mean, for Julius to choose to want to stay here on less money and play basketball in February, something had to have been here for him. And I do think a lot of it is the community and the fans.
And Julius is going to be a very, very big key as we kind of head into these last 26 games of the season. And like I said, one game separates this squad from the 3 seed, and they're also 7-3 in their last 10. They've also looked very good those last 2 games before break. But we've heard about this effort all season long. That's always been the biggest thorn in the side for this team. But I just want to ask as well, besides that, because that's just what everyone knows here, Andrew, what are some things in your eyes that you see the team needs to improve on here besides the effort to grab that 3 seed? And, San Antonio's got a sizable lead, but they could even push it for 2.
Yeah, 26 games is a lot of time. And you look at this team, and traditionally in the Chris Finch era, even his first season when he got here after Ryan Saunders got let go, like he gets guys to play really good at the end of the season. So I look at the kind of home stretch, and it's very like minute things. The offense, how can we get a little bit more ball movement, a little less stickiness? Julius Randle as a post player is kind of the impromptu point guard. Can he get back to his kind of November, December level of play where he was making those decisions a little bit faster? And then it'll be the defense with this team. When Rudy Gobert is on the floor, they are an elite defense. Overall, they are a top 10 defense this year. But when he comes off the floor, things just go awry. So it's kind of the same questions of like, is adding Io to this team enough to make this defense passable when Rudy isn't playing? And just again, the effort, attention to detail, like this team plays the hardest schedule out of all the Western Conference playoff teams. They do have less back-to-backs than most of the Western Conference playoff teams. So are they going to be able to kind of harness that energy level because the competition is better and then use those days appropriately to recharge? That'll all be to be determined, but they've the Wolves over the 4 years I've been writing about them and covering them, they always play best when they put their backs up against a wall. And for some reason, they almost have to put their backs up against the wall. I mean, you look at this season, and I think any fan that's watched them can pick out 5 or 6 games that they should have, quote unquote, won. And that's the difference between them being in the 2 seed and where they are. But now it's officially that time where it's, hey, if you guys don't want to play Denver in the first round, Houston or San Antonio in the second round, and Oklahoma City in the last round, they got to start ripping off wins. So I think this home stretch is going to be really exciting for fans, because I do think this team has a track record of waking up when it matters.
Yeah, and Alan Horton, radio play-by-play and fill-in, well, mostly almost full-time here for the Wolves at this point on TV, but he had a very interesting stat as well, and we've seen this song and dance before, Andrew. Some fans might call this this slightly disappointing season. Now, I don't even know if you want to call it that. You and me have seen some serious dark years, but the difference is we have real expectations now for this team, and Alan shot out that tweet saying Finch's 4 full seasons with the Timberwolves, the Wolves got the 4th best record after All-Star break. So I expect this team to pick it up again after what we saw last year as well. But we're going to need a little more contribution from some of these players and some of these guys. Even Dante has been awesome, doing everything besides really shooting the ball. If he can make a few more threes at times, then we're sitting probably in the 3 seed right now. So what kind of players do you have in mind that could take one more step up to really get that 3 seed and push for the 2?
Yeah, I think my first guy that I'm expecting another step up is Jaden. I think, you know, Finch after the game before the break kind of said, it's the time of the season where stats don't matter. Like it doesn't. You'd have to score 70 points a game to really kind of nudge your points per game in a sizable way. So kind of like your body of work is there, right? Like Ant's points per game, kind of where they are. Julius, kind of where they are. And Jaden's often the guy that I think doesn't care about that as much. I think he's the guy that kind of gets overlooked a little bit. He's a very tertiary like role player on this team. He's kind of an afterthought on offense. And now that he's shown that he can be elite on offense, whether it's with his paint jumper, shooting 45% from 3, great in transition, now I think he's going to get this opportunity where guys are going to start paying attention to the game plan a little bit more, maybe not call their number as much, and start looking for him more. And I think, again, just the track record, if they give him more touches, there's going to be more success. I mean, he is a 7-foot guy that's often guarded by, the 4th or 5th best defender on the other team. Like, I think it's going to be a good close of the season to Jaden. The other guy, I think Io, just the more he gets accustomed to being on this team. I mean, Chicago fans loved him in Chicago. I think he's really going to spark some stuff off the bench. And I think Wolves fans are really going to latch onto him as well.
Really, anyone who plays hard for this team, that is a guy that these fans latch on to. I can tell you that much. And on top of that, we did hear Chris Finch maybe a month ago or maybe even earlier. There was that 4-shot attempt game from Jaden where he's like, we just need to get this guy more touches at this point. And that's what we're hopefully going to see because, like you mentioned, he has usually a size advantage on whoever is guarding him because, like you said, he's kind of an afterthought for opposing teams, not for Wolves fans. We love Jaden around here, hitting 45% from 3. But I also want to talk a little bit more about Io, too. Feels like he's just fitting in like a glove. 33 points in his last 2 games, and the hustle stats, really, that don't come up on the stat sheet. He's just doing it all, being like maybe another Dante, or when I was on your show, just that glove like Nickeil Alexander-Walker was. Not even getting to the rack or hitting a high percentage of his threes, but also off the court just seems like a very mature dude. What have you made of Io's impact so far, and what vibes have you caught from him just being around him?
Yeah, he's a really down to earth guy. Takes mental health seriously, journals, uh really guy that's kind of he talks about his faith a lot. Like he just seems like a really grounded person. I don't necessarily know like his life story or anything like that, but sounds like Chicago kid, kind of came up through the system and made the most of every opportunity he's gotten, which I kind of expect him to continue to do here with the Wolves. From a like fit standpoint, honestly, they just need him to be better than Mike Conley. Mike Conley, whose shot was not the thing I thought would fall off. Like the guy had been shooting well the last couple seasons. I thought if anything, it would be speed. Maybe he's just a step slower, gets an injury, something like that. But really, Mike, it's been his shot. He isn't able to hit from a floater range anymore. His corner 3-point percentage is down in the 20s. And you look at a guy like Io, shoots 55% from the right corner. That's the corner Mike stands at. Shoots about 45% on above the break threes. Mike was shooting about 32, 33-ish percent from those. I mean, just the natural upgrade in just shot making, I think is going to be huge for this team. And then on defense, he's a really good, hardworking defender that really takes that craft seriously. And, one of the first things he said when he got here to the media was how excited he was to play with Gobert because he's going to be able to take more chances, like be more aggressive. And when you're already looking at the guy as one of Chicago's best defenders with Vucevic behind him, kind of a plodding European center, and now you're going to four-time defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert, I think his upside on defense as he continues to get more accustomed to this team, I think he could really be like him and Jaden are kind of the two best defenders on the team by the end of the year. So it's going to be exciting. I think he has kind of the mental aspect that the Wolves look for. Tim Conley made a reference after the fact of just like always targeting good people because it sucks to work with a bunch of jerks was his verbiage. And they got another good one with Io, which again, as a fan, that's got to be exciting for someone that's working and covering the team and hoping that I can continue writing into May and June. It's definitely something that I'm excited for too, because I do think he'll be a difference maker.
And you've seen really the come up of this Timberwolves squad throughout the years. Mentioned you were writing for 4 here, and obviously probably a fan before that, but you've seen this kind of same Timberwolves team, even though there's different variations each year. Coming off this All-Star break, we only got 26 games left. Where do you expect this team ends up when it's all said and done for the regular season? Because like we've seen in past, they turn it up after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think the 1, 2, and 3 seed, like the Oklahoma City, I think they're just so talented that they are going to be able to get away with resting guys and still probably finish at the 1. The Spurs look like they're trying to prove something to the league, which tells me that they're probably not falling. uh, is it realistic that they can jump Houston, Denver, and LA? I mean, that's asking a lot for a team to jump 3 teams. That would mean those 3 teams have to just play like kind of average, above, a little bit above average, and the Wolves would have to be on that 7 out of 10 pace for the rest of the season. Like, that's asking a lot. With that kind of logic, I do think they'll finish 4th or 5th. I think they'll pass 1 or 2 of those teams, but whether it's Denver with a healthy Jokic putting it on, whether it's the Lakers kind of feeling desperate with this current iteration of their team putting it on, or the Rockets kind of figuring things out again, it's going to be tough to jump all 3 of them. Yeah, but 4th or 5th, I think that's a good place, a good expectation for them to be. I think if they finish in that 4 or 5 range, you're probably playing the Lakers or Rockets in the first round, and The Wolves don't fear the Lakers. I mean, we saw them kind of walk them out of the gym last year, and the Rockets are just a lot of Kevin Durant. I don't know how they'll fare in the postseason. So if that's where the Wolves finish, I think they'd be happy with it. And then it's, who do they get in the second round? Is it OKC as the one, or the Spurs as the one?
And on top of that, too, I mean, it doesn't seem like you mentioned we'll probably end up in the fourth, fifth seed, but when it all kind of comes said and done, this team can really compete with anyone, right? I mean, we've seen them beat the Spurs, we've seen them beat OKC. Is there really any concern that they're just overmatched by one single team here in the Western Conference?
Not so much. I think Oklahoma City can still give them the most problems, just with the amount of wings and depth and speed that they can throw at the Wolves, and the different styles that OKC can play. Like, they can slow it down with Hartenstein and play inside. They can space it with Chet. They do have like legitimately six deep on the wing position. And then Shea is a former MVP that, well, kind of regardless of what you think of him, like, he's a talent. I I think outside of Oklahoma City, the Wolves, I like their chances against everyone else. It's kind of what you said though. Any single team, right? It's my fear with the Wolves more than anything else is that they are going to be in a position where it is you have to beat the Nuggets, the Spurs, and Oklahoma City, which that is just if they were to finish as the sixth seed, that's their path. And that is just such a tall task to ask of a team to beat those three in particular. So, that's my hold up on saying like this team is going to go has a real chance to win a championship, just because they've put themselves in this position where it is going to be a really hard road unless they crawl up into that 4-5-3 range. But any team on any night, they've shown that they can beat them, and they have a lot of guys that love the spotlights. So when you got guys that love the moment, it gives you a lot more kind of encouragement that they could go out and pull off upsets.
And that's why we really never worry about Anthony Edwards, even when he has maybe an off game. And that's kind of the trust I have in this team as well. Oh, let me get this out of the way. 10 minutes left, by the way. But no, that's just a great to hear that Anthony Edwards is just always one of those guys. If the moment's big, you can expect him to put his best on the table. But now that we got that 10 minutes left on the Zoom here, I want to talk a little bit more about you and yourself, Andrew. Full-time nurse and a sports reporter, by the way. That may be two of the most stressful jobs you can have out there, not to mention the time you have to put into it. Did you tell me the story? Did you start as a nurse first, and then what possessed you to say, yeah, let me just go ahead and report for like 3 different teams here?
Yeah, I got my nursing degree. It'll be 10 years ago this fall. So I've been doing the nursing thing for a while. Um, Worked a bunch of different places. Eventually, kind of found a home doing home wound care primarily. So if you get a sore, a bed sore, a pressure sore, a surgery goes wrong, what have you, and you go back home, uh, you can't manage your wound yourself, me or someone from my company will show up and kind of say, kind of teach you how to do it, as well as take care of that until it heals. Shout out Home Healthcare Incorporated. We also do med setups and IVs and different things like that. It's not just wound care. That's just kind of my preference. But yeah, about 5.5 years ago or so, started focusing on my mental health a little bit more. And through that mental health journey, my therapist and my wife both kind of challenged me to take a run at doing something with sports, as that's something that as a fan I've always really enjoyed. And when you're younger, you kind of hear how impossible it is to get in sports, so you tend to shy away from that. But at the ripe old age of 30, I decided to, what the heck, why not try it? So reached out to some of the local sports people in Minnesota. Matthew Collar, shout out to him, was kind of the guy that helped me get my foot in the door. I did a football podcast for about a year, ended up spinning that into a job with zone coverage, writing on the Wolves, and then wrote about them a couple times a week for a year and a half, 2 years. The Lynx reached out and, thought, hey, maybe zone coverage should do some Lynx coverage. So I got nominated for that gig and got credentialed with the Lynx, turned that into credentials with the Wolves. Now I'm credentialed with the Gophers too. But yeah, it's been a weird ride. I've kind of said at every step, if this is as far as it goes, like I have already accomplished more than I ever thought I would. When I started out on this, I was just kind of like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I got like paid to talk about sports? And then I got to that point and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I got paid to write about sports? And then I got to that point and kind of every little stepping stone in between. But been a weird ride. I'll say that, you know, one of the things I've kind of learned from doing this, especially in the Minnesota market, is like there really isn't a reason anyone couldn't do sports journalism or reporting. Like it is pretty, I'm not going to say easy to do, because as somebody who took comp 1 and then never took another college writing class, like it is a lot of work learning how to write. It's a lot of work learning like the dynamics of players. But there's space. If people are sitting there going like, man, I should really start a podcast, or I want to do TikTok videos on the Wolves, or I really want to get in with the Lynx and start doing content with them, like you just got to start doing it. And then as long as you're passionate, as long as you keep getting better, as long as you keep like taking feedback and criticism, like anyone can kind of get to this point. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of passion, but it doesn't you can't get here if you don't start. So if anyone's sitting here at home like wanting to get into journalism, I'll never be the guy that's like there's just not room for more people. Just start it. Whatever it is, just start it.
And every time I get tired or whenever things are stressing me out, I go, man, there's guys out there like Andrew who probably get little to no sleep. I can actually get up today. I'm fine. The work you're doing right now is very admirable, and thank you what you do. But now that we just have a few minutes here, where can our Fargo, Grand Forks, and North Dakota people find you here?
Yeah, I this is the first time being on a Fargo airwaves. I do a Fox Sports Radio hit every Monday with the Yankton, South Dakota radio network. So can listen to me there. I'm on KFan occasionally on Sundays with the Worst Case Scenario crew. You can listen to me there as well if KFan gets out to that neck of the woods. Other than that, social media, I'm a Duke MN on all platforms. I host a post-game Wolves and Lynx live stream podcast. We go live as soon as the games are over. I have lovely people on the show like Austin here, and a variety of guests just from like different media corners of the Minnesota world. And then all my writing's over on Zone Coverage. It usually comes out on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Always appreciate it when people check out my writing. Arguably, that's what I put the most work into. But yeah, pretty easy to follow nowadays. As long as you have a social media, a Duke MN is where you can find me.
And then if you're not sure on the spelling, you can see it right there on our screen. Andrew Dukowitz. That's how you spell it. That's how you find him. Andrew, absolute workhorse here. Thank you for hopping on. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure, man. We'll be in touch. I think I have you coming on my show a couple more times before the end of the season, and it's always a blast. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem, no problem. Thank you very much for joining us, Andrew, and thank you guys very much for joining us here on the Valley News Now Network. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Love having guys like Andrew on to talk some Wolves, and we'll have more coming up here, so stay in touch. If you have our app, that's where you can find us. Otherwise, thank you once again for joining us. For Duke Schindler, we'll catch you later.